I'm Shireen Stanford. I'm a senior producer director at WPSU and the producer for WiSciFiles, here with Carolina Pulido, who is a quality engineer at Minitab Statistical Software. And with us are many other people, but our special guests are the 7th grade math students and teachers at Holy Trinity Catholic School in Altoona. So we're really happy to have you guys all here as a part of our first ever WiSciFiles chat. So Carolina, why don't we just start off with you kind of giving people a little introduction. You and I talked in our interview about how your education made math fun for you. Can you talk about where you grew up and how your teachers kind of instilled a love of math for you?
Sure. Hi guys. Well, I'm originally from Mexico, from a city that is called Puebla in central south Mexico. And I grew up there and I studied from elementary to college. And middle school, I think, was the place where math became very exciting and very attractive for me. And I remember in particular one of my math teachers, Miss De La Concha, she used to make us like contests from the whoever finished first a specific problem, and I think we were probably doing algebra by then, something along those lines. We would have to run to the corners, and we had 4 corners, so whoever got there first, there was basically like a little bit of competition and physical activity, and it was fun. For me, it was fun. And then just figuring it out and also gaining respect for other of my classmates that were also trying to figure it out, and sometimes we would struggle, so it would take us a little bit longer, and we would be like, wait, is anybody else already in the corner? And you would try to figure it out, so we're like working on the pressure. But it was a nice experience, so that's where it all started to be fun, and the challenge. I enjoyed the challenge, and also like that camaraderie between my peers, and being with other people that were also very into math.
Yeah, I think that's because sometimes I think math feels intimidating to people, but I think the idea of making it a game and like a competition is interesting, and it's a good one. So we do have a question from Holy Trinity, which is for you, Carolina. That is, what language was easiest for you to learn? So we know, because they've watched the video, first do a little bit about, in case people haven't, what languages you test in, and then you can answer that question. What language was easiest for you to learn?
Well, I think because my mom started talking to me in English at a very early age, probably was English, and also I went to a completely bilingual school. It was the American school in Mexico. And we were talking English since kindergarten, so it was like a natural environment, natural language for me. My second language was English.
Mm-hmm. Good, yeah. And another question from Holy Trinity. What type of math do you need in the job that you do now?
There's an area in math that is called real analysis. And basically it's math that you don't use any numbers. Weird, huh? But yeah, you don't use any numbers, and we didn't use any books either. So real analysis is basically what the name suggests, is analytical thinking. And analytical thinking is basically asking yourself questions. What do you know? What are they asking you? Can you draw a picture? Can you write down what you know? And what does that mean? That is analytical thinking, and that's what I most use in my job.
Yeah, it's interesting because you and I talked about that, and for you, I think you talked about math as another language to you. Why do you consider math another, like its own kind of language?
Right. Yes, I believe that. Because, like I said, math can be used to just think and process things that don't necessarily are numbers. They can be letters, or they can stand by other things. People can relate to that without having to speak a specific, Spanish or English or anything like that. It all relates to the same thing, right? If we have, like these gumball machines, like for example,
let's use
like if you anywhere you go and if you see this, you may start asking questions. It's like, first of all, like how many would I have? I have different colors. Like how many times would I have to click and see till I get a pink one, or how many times until I get a white one? So that is actually an area in mathematics, so it's in statistics, probability, and that is something that you don't need a specific language. It's just like humans, we have a curiosity, and math helps us answer questions, to help us grow from our curiosity from that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. And we have another question from Vincent from Holy Trinity that is, when did you start loving math? Which is a great question.
Yes. Well, I definitely think that I remember the moment when I started loving math, Vincent. And it was, believe it or not, it's gonna sound geeky, okay? So I had some word math problems in middle school. And I knew we were going to go on vacation to a beach where there was no TV, and it was just a very out there beach that my parents loved to take us to, and for me it was very boring. So I figured, okay, I'm going to bring my word problems to try to figure them out at the beach. And you know what? I did, and once I did, it made me so happy. It was like that. I was at the beach and I was not bored. I had just stuck with it. And after sticking with it for a while, I figured it out. And then I tried the next one. So that's really when I started loving math, in middle school at the beach.
That is a great story. So Sophia at Holy Trinity wants to know, what is your favorite part of your job?
Well, I think the favorite part of my job is to feel that I am making a difference in the experience of our customers. And for me, that translates into hoping they don't find any issues and get confused, right? When people start working in statistics, they might be a little bit intimidated. And our job, our goal at Minitab is to try to remove that intimidation and try for people to start getting answers to their questions. So for me, what I feel I bring to the table is figuring it out, any problems that our algorithms may have, so that we never give incorrect answers, and that user doesn't find any problems.
And we also have a question from Chloe at Penn State, who wants to know, in college, what helped you find industrial engineering as a major? And if you can talk about just even, choosing your major.
Hi, Chloe. So that's a good question, because I actually started in electrical engineering, and I found that it was isolating me a lot. I found myself in the lab longer than I was hoping for, so I felt personally I was getting a little bit depressed. So I went and looked for another area where I could be interacting more with people, and I found industrial engineering who had a lot of team projects, even though electrical engineering also had team projects where other people, I just felt that we were very much not really interacting. And then that's why I changed to industrial engineering. I felt that it would give me a little bit more of a taste of different areas in engineering, and I didn't need to narrow down to just electrical engineering. So it was a good experience changing majors, but I'm sure my parents were like, oh, really?
I think that's a good point too, because I think a lot of times people think, I have to figure out exactly what I want to do. I want to be in this major and, stay in this major. And for a lot of the women that we've talked to, there was a lot of shifting of like getting into a major in thinking, no, this isn't quite me, and, you know, making an adjustment. So I think that's an important aspect to bring about, because for you, yeah, for some people it might be good to be isolated, you know, and for other people it's just not going to work. So I think that's a good way to think about some of your own strengths and preferences and make those choices.
Yeah, and definitely if you can experience what the person that, like the type of job that you would be doing after you graduate, and try to find out a little bit more of what they actually do and what is their environment, and talk to those type of people. And that's basically why I'm doing this, because I want to share my experience. But yeah, if you can do that on your own, that would be great.
So Jacob at Holy Trinity wants to know, is your job in high demand? That is a great question.
Well, my job, you can see it as different things, I guess. As a quality engineer, in terms of testing, I would say yes. In terms of the specific type of testing that I do, which is statistical, I would say also yes, but that's a little bit more specific. However, knowing statistics gives you a very high visibility at a job market that is in the data sciences, and data scientists are very attractive as candidates for jobs out there. They're actually looking for people, and there's not enough data scientists out there. So that part of my job, as knowing statistics and knowing statistical tools that help you find answers to problems with data or information, that is in high demand, I would say.
That's a great question. Mackenzie at Holy Trinity wants to know, what school subjects are most incorporated in your job? What do you think those would be?
You know what? It's something that you probably do in most of your classes, which is teamwork. Teamwork, interact with people, communicate. So I'm sure you do that at most of your classes. So whatever class you do teamwork, you really use that at any job. And the stronger you are at building good alliances between people that have different skill sets, the better you are at identifying people's strengths and people's weaknesses and working with them. That's going to be definitely something that you can use. You have no idea how much. So I don't know that this is a specific class, but I think you probably are doing that in a lot of your classes.
Yes, and I think that's one of the misconceptions too people have, is that if you're in the sciences or in engineering, that you're always by yourself. We know that, from research, that that's the case, and so it's important, I think, that you're saying that, because you don't have to be good at everything, but if you can work well with other people who have different strengths, it seems like that's a really important part as well. So we have a question from Noni from Facebook. She's in Qatar. Can you speak to the importance of math in everyday life, like in a kind of tangible way? Like what does math bring to just every day?
That's a great question, and I would think patience and perseverance. Yes. So I think with math you learn that you have to take your time and don't try to guess, don't try to rush, but really ask yourself, okay, what are we trying to figure out here? And that you encounter in a lot of areas in your life, right? You deal with your ego, and your ego wants to figure it out fast, or maybe I'm not smart enough, and you have to shut those little voices down and be like, okay, it's okay, just what do you know? What am I getting? What am I supposed to what is the question? Understand clearly and honestly. And I think patience and perseverance and honesty, and humility. You may spend a lot of time, trying to figure out math stuff, and we all do. So don't feel bad. Both men and women do struggle. As you get at more advanced math. So just humility.
Yeah, I think it was interesting when we spoke in our interview, and you talked about sometimes, just like you said earlier, even taking numbers out of math and using it just like a way to analyze things. I just would never have thought of that, because all I think about for math is just numbers. Yeah,
yes.
numbers. But the idea that it's a way of just, being able to sit down and analyze a question, I think is really, really interesting. Holy Trinity has another question. Is it hard to do your work in different languages?
Sometimes if you don't get enough context, sometimes, for example, I would get like a translation from English and then two versions in Spanish or in another language without any context, and I'm like, whoa, sometimes people might think that because you speak all the languages, like you should be able to like give the translation right away, but sometimes it's, okay, wait, context is important. So depending on how, on basically the context of the specific translation, it may be one thing or another. So that's a little bit of the challenge. But other than that, I think understanding different languages helps us also understand other cultures a little bit better, and some of the perspectives. So those are the good things of understanding other languages.
Amy from Penn State has a question. How did you first become interested in dance? So yeah, we're talking about your tango now, not just.
That's
not
right.
Yeah.
That's a very nice question, and honestly, it was from my grandma. My grandma used to be just singing tangos around the kitchen, and I would roll my eyes, and I'd be like, seriously, tango? But I don't know why, it just stuck. And then when the first time I saw people dancing Argentinian tango, I was like, this is amazing, this is lovely. And then when I started dancing it, I realized that it's a big deal connection between people and then the music. So it's almost like a spiritual thing, a very human thing about connecting with the music, with the other person, and knowing that you want to be right there. In tango, you cannot really talk. You have to feel. You have to connect. And that, for me, is super strong. I've danced in different countries. The last country I danced tango was Italy. And I arrived there, just not really knowing Italian. But as soon as the music started, we were like in the same page. So it's at a very human level, you start feeling the music and dancing. So that's why I love tango, and how I started loving tango through my grandma.
And actually that makes me think of something we talked about. The idea that people think if they're also interested in something else that they can't also be, like art, that they can't also be interested in engineering or math. How do you see engineering and science and art, kind of all working together? I think you were talking about that it's important to have creativity in the work that you do.
Yes, I think they're related to each other, and don't let it stop. If art, creativity takes you to your happy place, go there. Enjoy it. Don't hush it down and be like, oh no, but that is not gonna take me anywhere. I mean, you might need both, a little bit of both. There's something about balance, right? Because there's practicality sometimes we have to accept, but one thing does not take value from the other. And I think just letting yourself be creative and flowing into whatever takes you to your happy place. One of my daughters is a wonderful drawer, and I used to find all kinds of doodles in her exercises, in her math. So she would go to her happy place, and I would mention to her, please come back to your homework. And try to go to your happy place after you finish your homework. So finding a little bit of a balance, but by all means, she has grown into her drawing in an amazing way that I think helps her connect with whatever marvelous, thing flows inside of her, and that helps her be a better human being. And I think just being creative will help you bring perspective to any project, any team that you are in engineering or science or math or law or any other areas that you may choose. So bring it together, integrate it, take it as a part of yourself, and don't push it.
Great. You talked about balance, which is interesting because Chloe from Penn State has another question, which is how do you balance your professional and personal life? Because you just mentioned your kids. I know you're married. How do you make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your kids and your whole family, that there's a balance?
Yes, balancing is honestly challenging when the way we live. You don't get a lot of help, so just being honest with yourself and saying I need help and prioritize, right? You have to prioritize and be disciplined, right? So you want to be disciplined in the way you do your things during the day, and try to keep your appointments, wake up early and all that good stuff, and try to keep your activities also balanced. Like you want to do some exercise as well, move and talk with people, don't stay isolated and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it is hard, but try to fit it in, even if it's just a little bit at a time. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting because you have tango, which is kind of like your time. I mean, it's that you're going to your happy place, and and then I think people always talk about that, like you need to fulfill yourself and be able to be a great mom and wife and all of that. So it's good to have tango.
Yes, you want to do that. Yeah, every week I try to make it to tango pretty much consistently, an hour and a half every Tuesday, that everybody knows this is what I do. This is Mama makes her happy. Please, let's make it happen.
Caitlin from Holy Trinity wants to know how many flaws can there be in one software, and also do you use a lot of graphs in your job?
Nice question.
I know, good question, Caitlin.
Hopefully, our goal is to have as little as possible number of flaws or bugs that we call them. I found a bug, and there are bugs that are worse than others. Some things may be not as critical, and what that means is that you don't want to give users a wrong result, like by any way. So those are like the ones that we really want to make sure we take care of first. But then there are other things that we might be able to live with. So you cannot achieve perfection, and that's another thing. You have to be constantly monitoring, okay, how critical is this? And the way technology works is that you just have to move so fast that you really have to not be looking for this ideal of perfection. You just have to prioritize and think, remind yourself what's the most important thing. And your question about graphs, Minitab has a lot of graphs, and I think graphs is another thing where like everybody can understand better, right? So for example, like if you see the gumball machines here, like if they were bar charts, you would see, okay, where can I fit more gum? Well, clearly it's going to be this one, right? So by showing things with a picture, it helps you translate the story, and telling stories through graphs is powerful. That's where people understand faster, better. So that's why in Minitab we try to also help users tell their stories through great graphs.
So we're nearing the end of our chat, but Brennan from Holy Trinity has a question. How much school did you go to? So that is a great question. So he says how much did you have to, but I think that probably varies. But for you, how much schooling did you do?
Hi, Brennan. So I got my undergrad, as I mentioned, I went all the way through 8th semester in electrical engineering, then I switched to industrial engineering. I did graduated, then I did my master's in math. So then after that, I started a certificate in applied statistics, and honestly, it was kicking my butt. So I was like, wait a minute, I cannot be with my daughters, we're eating frozen food pretty much every day, and it was crazy. It was crazy, and I was not doing all that great. So basically, that's all the schooling I've done, and I hope that I can continue at some point. I think learning, is something that sometimes you want to take a break for, but that's the schooling I've done.
Okay, so undergraduate degree in industrial engineering and a master's
In math.
in math. Sounds pretty good. So is there anything that you would like to say, kind of wrap up for sure our students at Holy Trinity and just anyone else who might be watching, any parting words of wisdom that you have?
Wow.
No, anything at all. Yeah.
Anything at all. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and just, be yourself. Hopefully you guys find an interest in math and science. And in case you guys are curious for the things that we have in front of us, the gumball machines, they were just basically to make you think about how math can help us. And it's basically by helping us answer questions that we may have. Hopefully you'll find that attractive as long as you can. It will always help you. The more math you learn, you will be able to understand and help other people understand things and answer answers to interesting questions.
Carolina, thank you so much for joining us and being our first live chat. That was really great, and we look forward to hopefully more people being able to see your videos. I'm sure people probably may have other questions that we might be able to follow up with you. And thank you so much to the 7th grade class and teachers at Holy Trinity Catholic School in Altoona.
Thank you guys.
Our next chat is actually next Friday, February 24th at 12:30 Eastern, and that's going to be with Elena Zavala, who is a really interesting and very dynamic forensic science graduate student. And so we look forward to having everyone join us there, and thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Carolina.
Bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much.